Rishi Sunak has said he was shocked and sad to hear of the King's cancer diagnosis, but grateful that it was caught early. The King has pledged to continue his weekly audiences with the PM while he takes time away from public duties to undergo treatment. It comes as royal sources reveal that workaholic Charles pushed himself too hard in the first year as monarch, carrying out more than 550 engagements and leaving wife Camilla worried about his punishing schedule. The King has now undergone his first cancer treatment and is reported to be on his usual good form. Last week, before the diagnosis had been made public, Queen Camilla attended the opening of a cancer support unit. She was apparently very compassionate and knowledgeable about the disease, telling staff Charles was getting on and doing his best. The King's openness about his medical issues has already had a huge impact, with the NHS page on benign prostate enlargement getting more than 25,000 visits following the announcement about his operation last month. But in a return to the old royal playbook, the palace has kept the details of the cancer diagnosis and treatment under wraps. And that's the bit that I think we do need to know. Ordinarily, look, somebody's not very well, it's a private affair. I think with something like this is our head of state, it's our king. We've already had details about a previous procedure that he'd been getting attention for. And my sense is, and this is not about, tabloid tittle-tattle, it's not about, oh, he's got cancer there. I genuinely think it would be useful and quite helpful to know what it is that he has. And I think it would also...
useful and helpful to whom?
Well, it would be useful in terms of the stat I just gave about the kind of visits to NHS websites based on that. I think there would be that. I think, look, nobody judges somebody for having a certain type of cancer. I think it would just be rather helpful to have that information.
But don't you think that if it's revealed that his type of cancer has a really low survival rate, then suddenly you've got mass panic, mass intrusion, everyone, going, oh, the King's dying, and it doesn't give him a fighting chance to get his own head around his prognosis, because everyone will be Googling it. It's the worst thing you should ever do when you think you've got
but everyone does.
And everyone will be doing it. And I totally get your point about raising awareness, but that's why I believe that what will probably happen is, as fingers crossed, touch wood, all the rest of it, Hail Marys, he does get through whatever the treatment is, and he does, overcome the cancer, that he will then disclose when he's confident to do it.
I was going to say, do you think he will?
I think he will.
Yeah, I think so as well.
That's in
it's a
his
really
DNA.
almost impossible question to answer, and it does show kind of the kind of professionalism you need when communicating something which is as big news as this. If it is stage 1 of a cancer that is quite easy to treat, then we could all, to a certain extent, relax. No cancer is safe, and don't forget as well, if you're diagnosed with cancer in one part of your body, there is always a risk it may have gone elsewhere. So that's the really scary part, even if you caught it early. But also, as I say, if it was stage 4 lung cancer, which I don't think it is, the whole country would be kind of going bananas about it, because you'd be talking about a regency, what's going to happen with the election. I mean, it'd be extraordinary, really. So it does sound like it's benign, because not benign, but it does sound like it's relatively treatable. There doesn't seem to be panic stations vibes from Buckingham Palace. But I think I probably do agree with Ian. Given that it does seem treatable, I think disclosing the details, it's stage 1 and it's here, would, I think, just kind of put it all out there, get people, and, obviously this programme would now be filled with oncologists who are experts in that particular type of cancer. True. No one would be getting treated on the NHS because everyone would be in the TV studio talking about it. But it would, I think, clear things up.
Yeah, I think it would have been good for him to announce what it was, simply because it's going to help more people, as we saw with the
prostate,
the enlarged prostate. As you know, surprisingly, I actually am a royalist. I support the royal family. I particularly like King Charles. But I just want to keep it real here. This is a very privileged man who has the access to the finest medical care in the world. When people talk about King Charles saying he's going to take some time off, people up and down this country are watching this show saying, my dad had cancer, my mum had cancer, my sister had cancer. They couldn't stop working because they have to keep on
1,000 people a day.
There you go. So, let's keep that in our minds, that actually, although it's terrible news that the King has cancer, it's great that they've caught it early, But there's people up and down this country who have cancer and carry on with their daily lives. They have no choice but to carry on doing that.
But JJ, and I'm really glad that we can agree on something royal for once, but even more so, it's brilliant that the King is receiving proactive early treatment and all of that. Why then do we have old people, vulnerable people, sick people, people alone, not getting early diagnosis and not getting treatment and waiting at bus stops to get to their treatment, or going home alone after their chemo or after their radiotherapy or after their surgery? I remember with my father in his, even in his early 90s, getting the bus to go to a brilliant hospital near us for his treatment and then going home and feeling absolutely rotten. So it is all, of course it's brilliant, and no one is throwing shade on Charles for the fact that he's going to be receiving 5-star treatment from the very best specialists. He will be, he will be chauffeured there and back. He will be, absolutely costed all the way through his treatment, and it's still going to be tough for him.
Yeah.
But there are so many people who are probably working, probably worrying about the bills, probably worrying about heating their homes or whatever it is, and dealing with cancer, and dealing with treatment.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very seductive point. I don't know how you address that, because even if you took Charles out of the equation, you'd still sort of be left with those.
Well, maybe focus on cancer. Focus on the fact
that is the point when someone like King Charles gets cancer. To put it very crudely and perhaps even slightly oddly, it becomes a vehicle for all sorts of debates. It becomes a vehicle for what do we really think about the royal family? And I feel, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. It becomes a vehicle about prominent people being transparent about their health issues. 25,000 people go on a website to find out about prostate enlargement. You've effectively educated 25,000 people who wouldn't have been educated. But weirdly, I agree with JJ, because I think as well as this progresses, this will turn into a debate about the health service. And people are, I thought it was a very powerful way you both put it. People are entitled to say, ordinary people seeking cancer treatment, a lot of them have to carry on working through an absolutely unbelievable time in their lives. And a lot of people don't have access to early diagnosis. We know, I always say slightly, again, glibly, we've cured cancer in the sense that if everybody had proper diagnostics, you would catch so many cancers early, treat them early, cure people, and cure them more cheaply. All of that, I suspect, as this goes on, will become part of the public discourse.
I was just going to say, I'm fascinated by that kind of debate of, if we were back at your old uni, Bournemouth Polytechnic, we would be,
Don't knock it.
It's a lovely place. I love those 70s design buildings.
It's by the sea, mate, which you can get in.
If we were debating, that ethical question is, does the king, as king, have a responsibility to impart this news? I think that's a genuinely interesting question.
I agree.
But and that has completely changed. Obviously, we never knew what
King George VI, nobody knew he had cancer.
Even he didn't know he had cancer.
Exactly, they didn't even tell the king. All the physicians knew that it was cancer, but it was such a taboo that the king, and it's sort of like we see in American politics and British politics when you see all these photo opportunities of politicians saying, photograph me going for a jog so you'll know how virile and young and athletic I am and therefore you can vote for me. There is that thing that leadership equals health, and if you're suffering with your health, you will therefore be a weak person and people won't put their faith in you, which is a nonsense, obviously. So it's nice to see somebody who is the head of state saying, I can also have cancer. But yeah, the Queen, we think Robert Hardman, him again, said in his book it was blood cancer. It was old age on the death certificate. It was the big C to our parents' generations. They never even said the word cancer because
and it was shameful.
Shameful. So we have moved. Society has progressed.
But Daisy, you as the royal expert, have the royal family made a mistake then in saying, look, we're going to be completely transparent with our health. The king's got to go and have his large prostate examined. And then Kate goes in and they say, we're not going to tell you what's wrong, what she's having. And then Charles has the cancer. And we say, we're going to tell them that he's got cancer, but not what kind of cancer.
I think it's very clear that the policy is what you, the patient, are comfortable with. Kate was not comfortable with saying whatever it was, and I suspect that was because it was more serious than she wanted to tell us at this stage. And I think it's the same with the king.
It's amazing that nobody still knows.
He's only getting his head around the fact that he has cancer. And I'm suspicious about whether Rishi Sunak was meant to have said.
No, I don't think he was meant to. I don't think he was meant to. I think it slipped out. Just as you might be talking about a family member and you were just, meeting up with a friend and saying, so-and-so's got cancer, but luckily they caught it early. I think it slipped out, and I don't think he meant to say it.
I agree.
But wasn't said with any information.
Weirdly, and it's contradictory. Weirdly, it's reassuring, but it also totally plays to the thesis that JJ and others saying, which is just get it out there.
I think so.
But actually, it's reassuring. Sorry. We're led to believe. Well, I believe that the Prime Minister would know if it had been caught early or not.
Yes,
I
the
think
Prime Minister
channels,
would get a full briefing.
The channels are open
Yes,
between
the
Downing
Prime Minister
Street
would know
and
exactly
Buckingham
what
Palace.
cancer King Charles has.
So that is reassuring. But then they did row back on it at the lobby briefings later on in the day.
Because he wasn't meant to say it.
Prime Minister's spokesman was asked, tell us more about the Prime Minister saying it was.
Yeah, it was
early.
like Cameron talking about the Queen's reaction to the Scottish referendum. He just slipped it out because he wasn't concentrating.
Yeah. I think
last night,
it's a
James Well was on TalkTV talking to our own James Well. James has terminal cancer. He talks about it very openly. And I was watching this interview he did with Mike Graham last night, and it was incredible because although I've spoken to James face to face on this as well, so I was hearing some of this for the sort of second or third time, but he speaks so effectively and in very pragmatic terms. He's had a long time to get used to the condition and what it ultimately means for him. But nonetheless, when I was watching that last night, I thought, you know what? I should get this checked. I should be aware of this. And it was because it came from a man in that position and a friend and a colleague as well, which sort of obviously
he's articulate and has a platform.
Correct. I just thought, and if we had some of that, maybe we will get it.
I think we will
from the King.
I think
because I think that would be incredibly helpful.